All right, so the next one here, the U.S. unfreezes military aid for Taiwan. So the U.S. has quietly released $870 million in funding for military aid to Taiwan after it was briefly paused during the Trump administration's freeze on foreign aid. Reuters first reported on February 21st that the U.S. released the military aid for Taiwan as part of $5.3 billion in exemptions from the foreign aid pause. China, which strongly opposes U.S. support for Taiwan, reacted to the news on February 26th. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Lin Zhan said, quote, "We are deeply concerned over relevant reports. China has all along opposed U.S. military assistance to China's Taiwan region, which has severely violated the One China principle," end quote. Lin added that the U.S. should stop arming Taiwan, of course. So the big important detail here is that the U.S. has sold weapons to Taiwan for decades. Since 1979, that was the year that the U.S. cut diplomatic relations with Taiwan to open up with China as part of a normalization deal with China. Since then, the U.S. has always sold weapons, which China says is a violation of their agreements with the U.S., which they have a case for that, but everything was kind of vague, purposely vague. But in recent years, in 2023, the U.S. started providing U.S.-funded military aid to Taiwan, which marked an escalation. And that really, China's not happy about that. In 2024, President Biden signed off on more than $1 billion in military aid for Taiwan. So this might be some of that they have released now after initially pausing it. The Chinese Defense Ministry issued a pretty strong warning against U.S. support for Taiwan and the Democratic Progressive Party in Taiwan. That's the ruling party, the DPP, and they're kind of encouraging this U.S. support. China, is very. This is the most sensitive thing, as China says. It's the first red line in U.S.-China relations that must not be crossed. So it's very provocative toward China. Whether, no matter what your opinion on the situation in Taiwan is, that's just the reality. That's how China views this. And the U.S. knows that by providing this kind of support, it's going to raise tensions. And this is all done in the name of deterrence, deterring a war, this increased support for Taiwan in recent years. But as you can see from China's actions and rhetoric, it's just making war more likely. So this seems like a repeat of what happened in Ukraine. And this is a part of the thinking of the Trump administration. Guys like Marco Rubio, they're huge China hawks, and they want to increase support for Taiwan and build up the military bases in Southeast Asia, in the Asia Pacific. That's a big part of the wind down in Ukraine.